Bonjour. That's a good start. France is a place of gentle beauty, where the play of light can turn the routine into the exceptional. Here, travelers are treated to a blend of natural and man-made beauty like nowhere else in Europe. For 25 years, I've been teaching Rick Steves the art of French living, or trying, while he taught me the science of guidebook writing. Together, we've produced guidebooks, maps, phrase books, all sorts of material to help you travelers navigate this my favorite country in Europe. We also operate tours, and this weekend, we're celebrating the fact that we have about 100 of our favorite, well, 100 of our guides, I shouldn't say favorite, in town to work on their tours. And because of that, we do this weekend where we invite all the tour members out and we have a celebration. Part of the celebration is giving talks like this that focus on how we cover France on our tours. Today, I'd like to introduce Graham Sutherland. Would you stand up, Graham? Native of Canada. He's kind of confused, though. Lives in London where he brews beer in the off-season, but about to move to Lyon in the southeastern part of France, which is near where I live when I'm in France. Welcome, Graham. And Monsieur Patrick Vidal.
Bonjour.
Who has been guiding tours since time immemorial. Yeah. He looks pretty good. Let's see. Both Graham and Patrick will help me narrate this trip through France today with you. France is filled with iconic images, and our job as guides is to help you sift through all the possibilities, whether you're traveling independently or with a group, to make the most of your trip to France. Now let's get started. Let's get oriented. Let's see if I've got a laser on this thing. I don't. France I think I'm colorblind, but the purple there in the center is about 2/3 the size of Texas with 3 times almost as many people living there. It is central in Europe. It doesn't suffer from the extreme heat of the south nor the cold of the north, so things grow well. You'll notice the Atlantic Ocean to the left or the west and the Mediterranean to the south. And to give you a sense of distance, too bad this doesn't. It's about from Paris to Madrid to your left and south, or Rome. It's about the same distance as it would be from Seattle to San Francisco. We can cover a lot of variety in that distance, but stay just within France. Probably the greatest strength of this country is its cheese. That's a joke. Variety. This country, what sets France apart from other countries in Europe is probably variety. There are over 400 different types of cheeses in France, right? And our job as guides is to make sure you sample every one of them. But the variety is far more than culinary, which it's most famous for. Scenic-wise, monumental Paris, from the north in Paris to the southeastern capital of Nice. You can travel in this country passing pastoral landscapes like this in Normandy, to rock-sculptured villages in the south, just a few hours away, and a few climate zones away, I might add, too. France has 2 distinctly different coastlines. If you like rugged, cold water coasts with high cliffs, go to the Atlantic side. If you like warm, salty beaches, sandy beaches, the Mediterranean forms its southern border. And if you must scale the highest peaks in Europe, you gotta go to France, because Mont Blanc is the highest peak in France and the centerpiece of the Alps. No, not Switzerland. But there are 2 other lesser-known mountain ranges in France, the Pyrenees that guard the border to Spain and eventually Portugal in the southwestern part of the country, and the way overlooked Massif Central in the southern central part of France, which protects its greatest canyons and most magnificent scenery, I think. All right. Culturally, France offers every bit the variety that it does scenically. One day, you could be here in the northeastern part of the country, quaffing liters of beer with blonde-haired men like this, eating sauerkraut smothered in sausage and ham, accompanied by Riesling wine in the Alsace region. While the next day, you could be in Patrick's region of Brittany, coming across kids like this that look more Irish than French, don't they? In the region of Brittany, where their favorite dish is crepes. They've probably never seen sauerkraut unless they've left their region. This is the variety I'm talking about. In the southwest part of France, near the Spanish border, locals look muy Spanish. And paella, or as the French would say, paella is on most menus. In the southeastern corner, the locals look Italian, because they were Italian until the 1870s. And pasta is shown in most storefront windows. And what me worry, sort of Italian attitude runs deep in this part of France. It's marvelous to stay within one country's boundaries and see all this diversity. But France is much more than a place to eat well and beautifully. In many ways, France is a yardstick of human achievement. For here, within this one country, we can trace the whole of Western civilization. From the greatest prehistoric cave paintings there are, 20,000 years ago, to Roman ruins like this at the Pont du Gard that rival anything Italy has to offer, to grandiose medieval fortresses like Carcassonne here. In the Middle Ages, Gothic architecture took root in France. So the first, and I think the most important Gothic churches you'll visit, on every one of our tours, you'll find one or two of them at least, were born here in France. And with that came radiant windows of stained glass. This glorious kind of art, 800 years old, birthed here in France. In the 1500s and 1600s, chateaux like this, in and around Paris in the Loire Valley, announced France as Europe's first economic superpower. Wow. The economy way outperformed England's at that time. And in the 1800s, France gave birth to this form of art that you all know, Impressionism, and more importantly, laid the foundations for modern art as we know it today, that France is still showing off in museums like the Pompidou Center here in Paris, keeping its edge as art capital of the world. Now, with scenery like that, with culture, art, history, architecture, most people would have been to France by now were it not for the French.
Have we met before?
Have we met before? A little bit of information goes a long way. Understanding that your waiter isn't tipped. Basically, your tip's included when you're traveling to France. He's paid whether or not you tip him a reasonable wage from the restaurant. Helps understand that he's in a hurry. He's paid to be efficient, not chatty, right? We communicate a lot of that, I think, on the tours we lead. And with a little help from your guide or your book, you can turn the waiter into your best friend in a heartbeat. But a little information goes a long way, and I think that's one of the joys of our tours, is helping people in that manner. Speaking of tours, we're celebrating our tours today, so anybody who signs up for a tour with us in this year, between now and the next week, gets $100 off that tour until Sunday. We'll talk more about that later. We have 5 different itineraries that cover France, and I'll be talking about 2 of those today. We cover the Eastern France side with the Best of the Eastern France tour, the Western side from the Loire to the South of France tour. We have a My Way tour that's unguided that we'll talk about at 11:30 today if you're around in a room that's upstairs. And today I'm featuring Paris and the loop on the far upper left-hand side of the heart of France. The strength of our tours is unquestionably the guides. There's just no question when I read the reviews, it's all about the guides. Our guides work with local guides to orient you, to get you to travel independently, introducing you to our local guides like Elwood von Siebold here on the D-Day beaches, tying in their history with what those local guides will say. It's about learning. Our guides are teachers of today's life, of yesterday's life, working with local guides. We use whisper systems now, and I think this has made things easier as guides for you guys to be able to guide with, to communicate information to, in loud or busy scenes, to make conveying these teaching lessons so much easier for us. And it's about today, too. Our guiding doesn't stop at the museum door. Let's hang around the cafe in the evening and talk about what you did during the day and what confused you, or that waiter's reaction to you when you ordered white wine with your steak and he refused to serve it to you. Why did that happen?
It's fair enough.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree. This is Chris Coleman, one of our guides as well. Our guides, by the way, are a mix of French and Americans. Most of the Americans are Canadians even, God bless them, are living in France. But it's a nice mix of the two cultures. And we mix it up. We have lots of free time. You can choose to join the guide for part of the group. Our groups average 25 in person. Maybe you want to go wine tasting with Michel and Jerome in the afternoon. Or maybe you prefer just watching the art on your own. Our tours feature the balance of organized time and free time alone. Or maybe your thing is having a café au lait on the Place du Forum in Arles. We'll make sure that's all possible. The last thing we want to do is occupy all of your time. And the last thing we want to do is stand in this line. Our tours are organized in a way, and our guides know how to avoid lines like this at Versailles. That's a big advantage. And here's how we get you to taste those 400 cheeses. Picnics, well, some of them make a small dent. How many cheeses do we taste on the tour, do you think?
400.
400. I was afraid that the standards had dropped since I'd stopped guiding. Merci, monsieur. Potluck picnics like this, where maybe you bring a course and we feature different cheeses, or we do as much as time allows on our tours, because there's a lot of convenient aspects for your time. We like to eat out. Every other dinner is covered. We'll orient you to the cuisine of the area that you're in. First night with us in that area, second night on your own. I love that kind of thing, and I love to eat and when I understand what I'm eating in an efficient way. Our drivers become part of the group. This is a huge, secret weapon on our tours. Every other tour company, the driver doesn't dine with a group. He's supposed to stay, he or she, in another room, not socialize with your groups. We require it, if we can, of our drivers to become part of the group. And I think that adds a dimension.
Yeah, some of them, we work with them for 10 or 15 years, and we've got a relationship going on with them that's a long-lasting one, which makes a big dimension, add a big dimension to the tour, yeah.
Let's get going. Thank you, Patrick. Graham, you'll talk later, I assume. Sorry. I told you I'd give you a hard time. All right, let's start with Paris. We'll review our week in Paris tour, and then we'll review what's left over for the Heart of France tour. If you've never been to France before, these tours, independent or organized, are the best use of your time to understand as a first foray into this gorgeous country of France. So we'll start with a week in Paris in 7 days, and follow with Paris in the Heart of France in 11 days. The textbook for the tour we give to you, it's part of the tour kit deal. When you sign up for our tours, you get $100 to spend on what you want. The guidebook that I'd recommend is one of these two, but the one on the left has more information in it, so you should take that with you because your guide will be referring to it. And because I write the book, you need to take it. With Rick and with Jean Openshaw, I should say, tri-author. We run the tours year-round. These week tours are so cool, you can just pop them in on a vacation. I think we just finished one at Christmas time that went till, the very late December. I love Paris in the winter. I
was leading this tour in late December.
You were the one?
Yeah, I was the one on the last one, yeah.
Oh.
And Paris in December is a great thing. I mean, the Champs-Élysées got those lights that they change every 3 or 4 years because they want to renew the thing. And those ones are something like 2 generations ago or something like that. So it changes every now and then. It's fantastic. The entire town is lit up, and it's a great place to be for Christmas.
A little bit different in the summer, right? It's good year-round, whether you're traveling independently.
It is, for me, I mean, it's good in every season. I fell in love with it in the fall. But the summer is one of my favorites because you get to picnic. All the cheese and the bread you can set up in a park. It's just the best way to spend a day.
What I like is it's a week long. You unpack once. Your guide does the museums, neighborhood, well, we'll talk about orientations in the morning. You have afternoons often free to do your own thing, or cruise around with a guide if you prefer doing that and not having too much free time. Day one, we arrive in Paris. We meet our group. We have an orientation tour of the neighborhood. And first of all, though, Paris, city of light. Capital of fashion, food, art, and literature. It stands as a symbol of all the fine things that human civilization has to offer. I remembered that. It's true. This is a magnificent city that you can't visit too often. A week in Paris is hardly overdoing it. It's a flat city with a river running through it. The beauty in Paris is not natural, it's man-made. Man-made beauty lasts longer. It deserves your attention. Our hotel is in this neighborhood right on the Seine River, just a few block walk up from this glorious neighborhood that's wedged between the Eiffel Tower, the river, and the Invalides that we'll talk about shortly. Really a cool place to set up for a week. Right off the Rue Claire, one of our favorite pedestrian-only streets, is where our hotel is located, so you can be grabbing your own baguette if we don't feed you enough. or you just want a stick to walk around with during the day, right? Our hotel is the Loire Valley Hotel. These kinds of hotels, the owners of this hotel come over and visit us on a regular basis and bring their staff with them so they understand where all these people come from, staying at their hotel. We have good relations with them in any case. And that's, I think, one of the strengths is the relationship between our guides and hotel owners.
Something like the bus driver. I mean, this hotel, we've been working with them since 2003, I think, something like that. And so it's the relationship is great. I mean, it's easy to deal with them and them to deal with us. That works very well.
That's the metro system. You get a metro pass for the week.
Don't be afraid of this picture, by the way.
It does look good.
It's not as hard as it looks. It's actually very easy.
I love this picture because the metro goes everywhere. You can be completely lost and just ask somebody, where's the nearest metro stop? You're never far away. And your guides will have you oriented to how easy the system is to use, and then you're off and running and getting home. One of the things I hope, an aspect of public transit that I hope our guides teach you on a Paris tour is how to use the bus, because it is a shame to be underground in this beautiful city the entire week.
As long as you don't look at the map of the bus, because this one is easy compared to the map of the bus.
Okay. You also get a museum pass for the week. You have 90% of the sites of Paris covered. Even if you choose to leave your guide, as good as Patrick is or Graham, and you want to do something on your own while he's doing something, you're covered. The museum pass gets you into almost all the sites that you want to see, probably except the Eiffel Tower on the tour that we do. The first evening, we'll do a bus tour in the evening to get you oriented. Paris, the city of light, right? Well, let's show off the Paris, the city of light. We'll do this, we'll climb onto the bus before or after dinner, depending on the season, and cruise by the Notre Dame, the Eiffel Tower, the Pyramid, the grand entry now to the Louvre Museum, and maybe we'll get out to the Moulin Rouge, It all depends on traffic, etc. So that's a great orientation to the city. We'll have dinner together our first night, and the next day, we're off and running, hitting the ground, starting where Paris did. And over 2,000 years ago, on the Ile de la Cité, right around Notre Dame Cathedral, our guide will start off teaching you about this Gothic architecture, why this matters, what building it replaced, the Roman Temple of Mars. And there's Arnaud Savignon, by the way. He's one of our guides who lives in Paris right now, could not come out to the reunion. We'll do the teaching, again, mixed in with local guides, specialists that we hire throughout the tour. We'll talk about Saint-Denis.
Saint-Denis, yeah, one of the rare guys who walks around with his head under his arm. It's pretty special.
There's a lot of symbolism in this sculpture that you'll see. We can't review it all on tour, but the guides can certainly give you an insight into it so you understand when you look at a building, it's way more than just an edifice where people can go pray. It's far more than that. In fact, well, I won't go, this is not the longer talk, so I better keep going. We'll see it. Feel free, Graham. Inside and out. Notre Dame Cathedral is busy, and so be prepared for crowds, but it is a glorious building on the inside. Just a few blocks away lies this tall, narrow, steepled chapel of Sainte-Chapelle that tends to be everybody's favorite church that they'll see probably in Europe. Because if the purpose of Gothic architecture was to raise the walls of the church higher so that we could display windows and scenes from the Bible for people who were 90% illiterate, telling them symbolic stories of things they should be thinking about before they die, then this church, wrong side, is indeed the zenith of that style of architecture. 1,000 different scenes from creation to the end of the world. And your guide will explain, not every one of them, but the layout of the church too, so you understand. It's just something beautiful to look at. But again, it's more than just that.
Just to give you an idea, I mean, we call it a church, but this is a private chapel for the king who built it, which makes it even more fabulous for me because it's just him in there looking around. It's wonderful.
Yeah, we say in the book that St. Louis could come out to pray in his jammies if he wanted to, because nobody else was around to bother him, right? It's magnificent. And as a tour member, your guide will take you through here, but I would encourage you to go back again with your pass, because it does cost to get in, your museum pass, at different times of the day, to see the reflection of light filter through those stained glass windows, because it is glorious on the inside. You'll get out after that and see the central part of Paris, circumnavigate Notre Dame Cathedral, cross over to the Latin Quarter, understand its historic importance, why it was called the Latin Quarter, wander the streets to past a little bit of American involvement in Parisian history, Shakespeare and Company. I suppose we'll talk a little bit about the Lost Generation, Gertrude Stein, Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway. And then this has got to be you, Vidal. My favorite museum, and I think it is yours too, at the Cluny Museum of Medieval History of Paris. Well, go ahead.
It's a great museum to visit after we've done all these all the stones in the morning. That's because you get to face with the heads which used to be on the facade of Notre Dame. You get to see the Lady and the Unicorn, which is one of the masterpieces of the museum, which is an amazing series of 6 tapestries, and that we don't really know where they're coming from, why they were done, who's done them. But it's a lot of mysteries around them, and they are fantastic. Stained glass windows from the Sainte-Chapelle as well, some pieces of the Sainte-Chapelle that you can come very, very close to and understand how they are
This is
made.
my favorite part. This museum, thanks, Patrick, collects medieval objects throughout the city of Paris and assembles them in one area. When you see stained glass windows, like you did before of the image of Sainte-Chapelle Church, they're usually very high up. Bring binoculars, we sell them. Or something, because throughout Europe you'll want them. Here is the only place I know in Europe where they have imported the original several frames, I think there's 9 of them, of original frames of stained glass windows from Sainte-Chapelle into this museum about 5 feet to 6 feet tall. So you can touch them. And you can see close up, like an Impressionist painting, how sloppy they are, but how gorgeous they look. Isn't that true?
Just please don't touch them.
Okay. Those French, they're so rule-bent. You'll end your day, your guides will end your day, depending on the weather naturally. This is one of my favorite things to encourage tour members to do. Okay, we've seen important sites. Now go be Parisian at the Luxembourg Garden. Hang out in one of these green chairs, watch the women go by with their children, and just relax. And then you do your own thing for as long as you want till dinner. And dinner tonight, I think, is a free dinner. You've got the guidebook for great suggestions for restaurants the whole week. You've got your guide with you to update you, because the last time I researched in Paris would have been with Rick in June last year, 2016, so things would have changed. The guide's there to update you. No, that place isn't so good anymore. Steve said it was. Or, yeah, it's really still good. I love having those free nights. Day 3, Impressionist Paris. Let's get off to Montmartre and explore this bohemian neighborhood that until 1870 was not Paris. It was its own neighborhood with a wall separating it between itself and Paris. Here, a different culture thrived. Right? Here, crowned by the Basilica of Sacré-Cœur, better from the outside than inside. Do either of you guys care about going inside that thing?
No, it's interesting inside. It's pretty good.
No,
It's
you
pretty
always
good inside.
disagree
No,
with me.
I just want to disagree with you. That's
Yeah, I know.
important. Otherwise, it's not funny. But it's very nice inside. It's very interesting inside. Spend a bit of time. It's free, and there's a line, but it goes very quickly in, and it's good to get in.
Great view from the top, but it's behind. We'll use a guided tour this day. Here's one we use a local guide, and our guides will mix it up with our local guide, who is an expert on the life of these people who chose to live here, Pablo Picasso's Bateau Lavoir, in the day when it looks 100 years ago, 120 years ago, where it hasn't changed that much since then. Artists are still selling their stuff to tourists, maybe a little more aggressively than the old days. But again, this neighborhood, with different rules, alcoholically related, tax-wise, cheaper place to live, ghetto-like, drew the likes of Vincent van Gogh. Auguste Renoir would paint scenes that you would not see in central Paris, because that was taboo. No, you don't do that. Oh, ça ne se fait pas. My favorite expression, that's not done. One of my favorite teaching lessons for traveling in France when we do a wine tasting is to remind people, anytime I do a wine tasting, nobody can tell you what you like. Grape, right? Dry, wet. Nobody can tell you what you like except the French.
And Robert Parker.
And Robert Parker. All right. So you can see the inspiration where these artists learned from each other on this hill of Montmartre. Vincent van Gogh's memories as well. You can visit his house if you want to or walk by it. And today there are a few people looking like him who are willing to paint your portrait. Walk down the steps to Place Pigalle and see the Moulin Rouge, faded today, but one time more dazzling to most visitors than the Eiffel Tower was. It was so, what do I want to say? Sexy, at a time when we were very prudish in that part of the world. All right. And that, of course, it drew the attention of Toulouse-Lautrec. You have a free afternoon to do what you want. This is what I'd suggest. After a good walking tour and lunch à Montmartre in the morning, it's 3 hours worth of our time, do you think?
3 hours roughly, yeah.
And you have the whole city in front of you for your free time in the afternoon. We won't take you to the Champs-Élysées because it's better to do on your own. Stroll up to the main Arc de Triomphe, built at the same time that Impressionist artists were crowding and learning from each other on Montmartre. Walk up to the top. You can't take an elevator unless you're in a wheelchair or handicapped, but the views are simply sensational, and our guidebook gives a self-guided tour to it. So the guided tour doesn't end if you don't want it to. It's just that your guide's not teaching you now. It's the guidebook that is teaching you. Look straight down the Champs-Élysées, one of 11 grand boulevards that feeds into the Arc de Triomphe, and at the end there, the building at the just top of that image, the slide, is the Louvre Palace that we'll see shortly. Strolling down 50, 60-foot wide sidewalks, spending more on a purse than you ever thought possible, and spending more on espresso coffee. 10 euros for a shot of espresso, are you kidding me? But you're on the Champs-Élysées, right? He who comes home with the most money doesn't win. Allow yourself, everywhere you go, that kind of experience. I wouldn't say do it on a daily basis, but if that cafe looks really cool and you're at Fouquet's, and you know James Joyce lived there for a period of time, almost virtually, and you just want to sit in a chair and know what it's like, allow yourself that expense. All right. That evening we get together. Sometimes we do wine tastings, I think. Sometimes we do
Wine tasting, we do French lesson, we do whatever, a bit of time together, and then dinner, and go for the cruise on the boat for an hour and 10 minutes all around the town, and end up seeing Notre Dame as we see here, or the Eiffel Tower and all the big sights at night.
I love seeing the city through the greatest buildings and the most beautiful sights line the river. That's how the city formed, and you should see it too in that manner. Day 4, we're going to see the Marais district that most of you don't know much about. We'll do a locally guided walk on this day. I think we still hire Paris Walks for this. Good. And start at one of its most beautiful squares, the Place des Vosges, and then dive into this perfectly, well, best preserved medieval quarter of Paris. All of Paris used to look like this until the 1800s, you could say. Much of Paris did. We'll go on walking tour of the neighborhood. That was also the center of Jewish culture until World War II. Paris was the region of Europe's most populated city for Jewish people until World War II. Almost 80,000 Jews lived here, and their culture is coming back and thriving again, although albeit not easily. We can visit the Memorial to the Shoah, which shows the lives of the 76,000 people deported from Paris to concentration camps in World War II, a powerful lesson that's useful for many people to think of today, I'll say, and how history can repeat itself, something to be aware of when you travel. Free, thank you. I shouldn't use my soapbox, but there are lessons when you travel that our guides, we hope, will remind all of us, not just you of. Powerful lessons. Free afternoon to visit a variety of museums right in the Marais district that are so handy. If it's modern art that you're into, go to the Pompidou Center. If it's, and see Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein. You have time to do this free, and our guidebook guides you through it on your own. The Picasso Museum is now open with over 400 works of Pablo Picasso that you could tour on your own with Jean Openshaw, who co-authors Paris books. Brilliant guided tour of that museum. Or you might choose the Opera House, the Garnier Opera. I love this building, and it's been recently renovated to be just as splendid as ever. Built in the late 1800s by the same guy who built the casino in Monaco, Charles Garnier. The interior of this, the exterior is pretty grand, but you ain't seen nothing till you go inside. The opera was all about being seen and being elegant, right? Dress up, even for the walking tour. And it's surprisingly easy to get tickets to go to the inside and feel that splendor of only 2,000 seats that the auditorium holds in such a grand and grandiose building. That's on your free time. Then we get back together that evening. I think we do the Louvre Museum on Wednesdays and Fridays is open until 9:30. So we'll do the evening tour because it's so much less crowded.
Yeah, it works very well. There's very few people around, and that means that we can enter and move around much easier than on a normal morning day anywhere in the week.
It's really cool. So you can do dinner before or afterwards. Remember, the French often don't eat until about 9 or 10 at night, so you can do either one you want to, I imagine. Elizabeth Van Hest is our guide here. She also guides our Paris tours, but she's a licensed guide. Several of our guides do both local guiding and guide our whole tours. You'll get a great introduction to this inventory, full inventory of Western civilization that the Louvre Museum is. Right? You'll see everything from Winged Victory, classical Greek statues, to Venus de Milo, to the Renaissance, the height of the Renaissance, to Mona Lisa, to neoclassical art. It's all there on display for you, brilliantly described with a local guide, and our guide going with you, who can also pepper some of their stories, and afterwards, in particular, add to anything or take you to a wing or another part that you might want to see. All right? Leaving you time alone. Use our guidebook again after our tour is done. It's about a 2-hour tour?
Yes, around 2 hours, yeah, yeah, something like that.
Then you're on your own. Day 5, then we're off to, so we've made the most of that day. That's a busy day. Remember, you got to take advantage of your free time and rest. Off to Versailles. You already know how the metro works. You got your tickets. We're ready to go. And we're going to go off to this palace that is, for 100 years, was the cultural heartbeat of Europe. 100 years. It's like the White House. Think of this. For 100 years, being the cultural heartbeat of Europe and the home to the kings and queens of France. It also housed, it's so big, over 5,000 nobles, or so they would come to spend days at this area, because this king, Louis XIV, was such a control freak. He wanted all of them right there so he could keep an eye on them. Today, those 5,000 nobles are replaced by tourists. Your guide will get you around these lines. If you're traveling independently, please read the book and trust what I tell you in the book. Avoiding crowds at Versailles is easily done, but if you don't read the book before you get in the back of this line, you'll wonder, why did I get in the back of this line? Because you didn't read before you came. Anyway, all right, this is the home that Louis XIV built. He took his dad's hunting lodge.
Hunting lodge, yeah, Louis XIII, hunting lodge in Versailles.
Yes, and went crazy. Spending half of a year's worth of the whole country's gross national product in 1 year to build this thing. That's controlling. That's power. You'll see his bedroom. We'll do a good tour of the interior with a local guide. And then see the Hall of Mirrors, of course. Anything about the Hall of Mirrors you want to add to this?
Well, that's, what I very like about the Hall of Mirror, if you look carefully at the mirror themselves, is that they are in different pieces, because they didn't have the technique to make mirrors that big at the time. So that explains why they were doing stained glass windows in little pieces as well before, because
That's
they didn't
right.
have the technique for that.
And
so
I don't think
good link to
mirrors,
that.
when this was built, mirrors were completely uncommon, almost unseen by people.
Yeah, not that, anyway, not that size, that's for sure. Yeah.
Let alone. It's no matter how many times you've seen pictures, to walk into the Hall of Mirrors is one of those experiences that you won't forget. It is truly worth the effort. All right. You'll have the afternoon free to wander the gardens. Again, the guidebook takes you through it. So once our guides leave you, you're on your own to do what you want. The gardens are less essential, I think, to see than the interior of the palace, but they are beautiful, and they are, depending on the time of the year, worth a certain amount of your time. You can wander. It's like a national park in a sense. You can wander for about an hour down to the other end of that's visible or available to the public, to Marie Antoinette's little hamlet when she lived there and she wanted to recreate her village in Austria. But then you got to get back. It's big, back to the center, the entrance to where the trains run back to Paris. So a serious visit to Versailles is all day. Other people may choose to see the palace with us and then head back into Paris. You haven't had a lot of time to do shopping maybe at this point. We got shopping for you. Read the guidebook. I do a chapter on shopping in Paris, and one of the greatest places to start is the Galerie Lafayette. Right next to the Opera House I showed you before, it has the same kind of architecture. This is actually check this out, a shopping store, a department store. It feels like I should shop here before going to the opera, so I look right. What I like about the Galerie Lafayette is it's their Nordstrom's, right, or we would say in Seattle, but is that, like many department stores in Paris, you can take an escalator to the top, and it's free to hang out and see the top. That's the Opera House from the back side. Beautiful, free views from department stores in Paris. Maybe that's how you want to spend your afternoon after the morning in Versailles, or you may want to shop the boutiques in other parts of the city. My wife does the shopping chapter in Paris, and she's very proud of it. And she's much better than Rick or I would be at this. And you'll get good ideas for stores from somebody who goes every year and understands them through the eyes of an American. Also with etiquette and how to approach these places, because it is a cultural experience. You don't just walk into a French store and try something on. That's rude, right? That's not your fault in a sense, but you should read ahead. And your guide would tip you off to how you shop in France and some things that are different than in the United States, right? All right, day 6, masterpieces of Paris. This is we saw Montmartre on day 3. Now we're going to go see the art that was produced by those artists who lived near each other on that funny hilltop in Paris. We'll start at the Orangerie Museum. I love this idea, and get a guided tour with an expert through this museum that's most famous for its 8 water lily paintings that Claude Monet did when he was virtually blind. Nothing? Larry? No.
Yeah, no, that's this museum has got 4 of those panels like that in 2 different rooms, and it's amazing setting because we get that early in the morning, and we're pretty much the only ones in the room as well. So you get time to sit down and enjoy it and get the explanation from the guide. That's amazing.
One of the reasons I love this museum so much is Monet himself designed the rooms that these paintings are displayed in, and the space before the paintings is just a white square room with nothing in it.
That's a good point.
When you walk in, it's to just clear your mind of all the debris before you go in to enjoy yourself. I think it's wonderful.
Right across the river is the Orsay Museum we'll talk about next, and we used to try to guide through that, but it's so busy and crowded. We learned that this museum was a better way of introducing you to Impressionist art that you already know reasonably well, but still, through classical works of art like the water lilies, amazing. And if you go on our Heart of France tour, you get to see the water lily ponds. Isn't that cool? No, I mean it. To see what inspired the artist, to go see them. They look the same as when he was there in the late 1800s. And then see the result here in Paris, only about an hour away. I think that's a terrific thing about traveling. Downstairs in the Orangerie Museum are little rooms filled with good works, with works of art by Renoir, Picasso, and a variety of others.
Cézanne.
Paul Cézanne. It's a great introduction to Impressionist art. And then right across the river, as I say, free time, but we'll orient you to the Grand Orsay Museum, which really is the greatest collection, a renovated train station that presents a great collection, a great way to show off all, seems like, of the artists from the Impressionist era that you know. From Manet to Monet, that's beautiful, to Cézanne, to Van Gogh, to Lautrec, it's all there. We'll get you oriented to the museum. Use your book. A self-guided walking tour takes you through it beautifully. If you have more time or prefer, you can go to the museum dedicated to the artist who did for sculpture what Claude Monet did for painted art, the Rodin Museum, and see Auguste Rodin's just about 10-minute walk away museum that was inspired by the same spirit of Impressionist art, emotional, showing emotion, showing feeling, showing thought. It's kind of a joke, thinking. All right. I tried. Yeah, gotta try. I used to say it was a thoughtful place. That didn't work either. All right. And other people might prefer, or if you're really busy, effective, you could go next door to the Invalides, which was a hospital for military veterans built by Louis XIV, which is now really first of all, the grandest, under the Golden Dome it's a military museum, but also under the Golden Dome lies powerfully dead France's most famous figure, it seems, Napoleon. And you can see his tomb. It is a hair-raising visit. It is unbelievable how this man is venerated in your culture today.
Considering that he died on an island by himself in the middle of the Pacific, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Do many of your tour members go, do you know, on the Paris tour?
On the Paris tour, this is really nice, the last few museums that you've shown.
Yeah.
It's all about a 15-minute walking distance from the hotel.
Very good.
And there's a park in the middle with people playing
That's right.
pétanque. It's a wonderful little triangle of museums. So I do think a lot of people visit it.
Yeah, I had forgot, it's very close to our hotel, so you can toddle home when you want to. You'll see museums inside this, individual ones dedicated to the Middle Ages, to World War I, World War II. World War II, that I'm showing you a room from, is the most well-presented in the Invalides. It's really an effective history that we also guide you through in our guidebook. You'll have a chance to visit the Eiffel Tower at the end. This you have to do on your own. The museum pass doesn't work, and obviously, rather than 25 people going up at once, you're better to do it on your own. There are a variety of ways that your guide can help you with booking the Eiffel Tower. Reserve it ahead if you can. Ideally, you go at the end of the day, go all the way to the top and get views like this, and then so you can come be up there at twilight and see the sunset from here. And then at the end, see it when you come down, fully lit. It's much more beautiful at night, everybody would agree, than at daytime. Great way to end your trip to Paris. Now, let's continue on outside of Paris, because if you only have a week, going to Paris is hardly a compromise. But if you have a little bit more time, 11 days, for example, I would love to get you outside of Paris. All right? So, in the first 3 days in our Heart of France tour, we'll cover the highlights that we just showed you of Paris, the best 3 days of Paris that we can, and then we'll move beyond. Then we'll hop on our bus and head south, pretty much south and east, into my region, where my house is today, where I hang my beret in research season in Burgundy. And we will take you to the coolest site in Europe. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's very interesting.
I love this place, and you've never heard of it before. How is that possible?
But because there was a project set something like 15 years ago about building a castle from the 1200s with the same techniques and the same hand by hand, stone after stone, and the project were planned to last something like 25 years. We are, I think, 15 years in, something like that, and it's getting up and up and up every year. And we can walk around there and see the people working exactly the way they were working almost 1,000 years ago.
One of my favorite parts about this is that we actually don't know how to do it. So the interesting part for me is going there, and the builders will just be staring at a wall trying to figure out how to get a beam up without that, because we don't have the information. We have stuff from manuscripts and from windows. That's it. Tools and stuff.
It's exactly right. One of the objectives, this is not a tourist site. The objective was almost like a National Geographic project to figure out how did they do it. Well, how do you figure it out? You build it using the same tools and techniques that they did in the year 1200. The only thing modern, I think, are the eye protection where they have to wear.
And our audio systems when we need them.
That helps too. Sarah, we have a great guided tour of this area, and then we have luncheon. We see people, it's built in a quarry. They'll pull the rock out of the hill, then dress it, turn it into rectangles, then figure it out how to get it up.
Anytime you see a stone wall after you see this site,
yeah, that's right.
Those are some nice dressed stones. That must have taken a while. It gives you a whole new appreciation for it.
I can't get enough of this place. My house isn't that far away, and I go every year just to see how much taller it is. You can go back time again. How cool is that? So I love that we do this on the tour. There they are, squaring off the stone. You'll stop at various stations and see how they did things. Then they're standing in front of the squirrel wheel. Is that what they call that? I don't know what they call that, where they walk in it and they raise the stones up through that wheel right there. And you'll see it grow. And that afternoon, we land in the city that you've never heard of. Where are we?
Bourges.
This is a big surprise to all of our tour members, how much they've never heard of the city of Bourges, Burgess in American English, B-O-U-R-G-E-S, and what a delight it is. We used to do this all the time on our tours, it seemed, take Americans to places they'd never heard of and delight them with cities like this, just about 45 minutes south, an hour south of the castle at Guedelon. That was called Guedelon that I showed you before.
And the whole town is like that, by the way. The whole downtown is all that half-timbered housing. It's absolutely stunning.
It really is. I thought, I didn't include this in the book until we did it on the tours. Usually the books start the information and the tours follow the books because we research, right? This time I learned from the tours. And the reviews from tour members are just astounding. So if you're traveling on your own, try to make time to get to Bourges. A free night for dinner to hang out or just have a pre-dinner drink, whatever you want to do, and then see one of France's greatest Gothic cathedrals. The lighting at night. Go ahead, Graham.
I mean, it's an unusual cathedral for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons for me is that it just doesn't fit the town anymore. The town was once very important, but now it's quite small. Yeah. And you'll just turn a corner and wham. It's almost hard to take a picture of properly. You can't get the whole front of the church onto your lens. It's impossible.
You can see that from this, the angle that I could get was as good as I could get. You're right. You've learned about stained glass because you've been in Paris, and now we get to see brilliant examples of stained glass in this Gothic cathedral. And as Graham said before, then the next morning, wake up, got some free time to wander those medieval lanes. This is what it looks like. And nobody's there. The problem with some cities today that are adorable like this is there's lots of tourists there or other people, understandably, they should want to be there. Here it seems, I think the joy in part is that we just seem to have the place to ourselves.
There are Germans every once in a while. There's always Germans.
We'll talk about that later. Good for them. All right. Then it's off about 3 hours away to the happy hunting ground of the French kings and queens, the Loire Valley, where we'll spend 2 nights exploring this strategically incredibly important region. On our way to our home for the night in Amboise, we'll stop at the Chateau of Chambord. This was another sort of Versailles, built by Francis I, Francois I, one of the most important kings, the Renaissance king of France. In the 1500s, he diverted a whole river here to have a moat around it. 440 rooms, 365 chimneys. Heck, you can have a different fire and a different fireplace every day of the year. That's pretty cool. And all those chimney stacks on top. Why so many chimneys? Why so many rooms? It's the King of France. Why are they in the Loire Valley? Hunting's the name of the game. Still is today. It's the place to hunt in France. It was certainly in the 1500s, 1400s. When the king brings his friends to hunt with him, he's got an entourage that's huge. You need lots of rooms. Why the chimneys? Because hunting's a winter sport. In France, most of the forests are deciduous. Leaves fall off the trees in the winter. Now we can see the animals. A little information goes a long way, doesn't it? And that's the kind of information we'd love to give you when we travel and see magnificent chateaux like this, see Francois' bedroom and other kings of France who occupied it for a while, and chart out your own hunt. You can climb to the top, and just as the kings did the day before, check it out. Which way do I want to go? There's a vast, vast forest, protected forest. It's like a national park around it, with a huge wall.
It's the size of Paris.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
It's enormous.
So the whole hunting ground, the whole region. Oh, I got to add that to the book. That's good. Then you'll end up your day in Amboise. I love this city. It makes a great base for visiting Chateaux of the Loire Valley. You're here for the castles. Those castles that I mentioned to you, that some of them predated, many of them, most of them that we visit, Versailles. And Versailles, so Versailles didn't just come out of anywhere. What did I say about Versailles earlier? Louis XIV took Louis XIII's dad's hunting lodge and expanded it a bit. Hunting lodge. These were built, started, a lot of them had to do with hunting. The village of Amboise, with its own castle, and its own king reigning here for a period of time, was an important city in its day. Today, it's just a place to eat goat cheese.
Bah.
I apologize.
I don't.
This is what happens. Someday we'll talk about the very first tour we did together, Patrick. All right. It's a great base. We'll talk about Amboise a little bit more in a moment. Just a great base to about 10,000 people and very close to the greatest chateau you'll see. I don't care if you've seen Versailles. I don't care where you've been. This is the greatest chateau palace, not defensive castle. It's Chenonceau. We leave early in the morning, 9:45, 8:30, so we get there right when the doors open at 9. We get this and have it to ourselves. We follow the advice in the book. This glorious 1500s, built in the 1500s castle, arcing over the Cher River, C-H-E-R, has it all. It has it all. Brilliant gardens, really lovely at Chenonceau. We'll do an orientation to it and then leave you mostly free time on your own because it's so well presented in our guidebook, in our and in their audio iPod tours as well. Many sites in France have these self-guided tours. You just sort of listen to this device that something like I'm using, and they'll self-guide you through it. All right. Great interior, kitchen, and then back to Amboise for a free afternoon, as I mentioned before. Do the self-guided tour from the book. Wander up to the Clos Lucé, where Leonardo da Vinci spent the last 8 years of his life just being smart for the king of Francois I. In his basement, decades ago, IBM paid to build in models of his inventions from 500 years ago. And it's remarkable what he thought of 500 years ago, writing right to left with his notes and trying to understand and decipher those notes. Then a free night for dinner. Then we're off to Patrick's region of Brittany. So it's about a 4-hour drive, I think, to the coast from the Loire Valley.
Roughly, yeah, 5 hours, yeah.
And this is where you live. I mean, not on the water, but this
Well,
area.
it's a bit cheating because Mont Saint-Michel is not in Brittany. It's in Normandy still. It's just on the side.
But it was in Brittany for a long time.
It was in Brittany when the water was on the other side. But that's 1,200 years ago, so we can't blame them anymore. So.
Brittany is a lovely place. And this, Patrick's area looks like this. Half-timbered, crepes, cider, this kind of thing. And we have free time at a town like Dinan or Fougères, La Fougère. The guides get to pick where you guys stop for lunch so that we can explore and have time on our own in a classic Breton village. There's the crepe. Before arriving at this iconic site, the island abbey at Mont Saint-Michel, right? We'll arrive here late in the day and transfer from our bus to local bus. I can't spend too much time or I'd go way over, but this bridge that you're seeing, this elegant bridge, this is a picture that Rick took with me just recently. We were there last June, and it is remarkable. Okay, backwards. How did he say backwards? Was that way? Yeah. See this? Oh, nuts. I don't have a... Never mind. I want to tell you all about it, but I'm not going to be able to. That's a causeway in front of it with cars parking there right in front of the island, leading off the mainland. That is now replaced by this, so the water can again circulate all around the island. And no cars are parked anywhere near, so it feels like it did originally. And this pedestrian and only electric buses go back and forth shuttling you to and from the island, from where our bus parks. We spend the night on the island, just like we tell you to do in the books, darn it. Because you should. Because if you arrive before 5, you run right into these people headlong. But if you go on our tour, you arrive after 5, and it looks like this. Who would want to visit Mont Saint-Michel between 10 and 4? Right? It's a totally different experience. We stay in this hotel or one nearby, same thing. And we are right there to explore the Abbey, have dinner in a hotel restaurant. So we can go see the floodlit view every night, which is better than ever now because of that bridge that I just showed you. Right? In the morning, we'll do a tour of the Abbey with our guide, have a little free time, and then head off to the city of Bayeux, the heart of the Normandy region. Lovely town, Bayeux, filled with squares like this, another town you probably haven't heard much of, and stay commonly at this hotel, the Argouges, that looks like a little chateau hotel. Love this place, lovely people. Their son of the owners was just out about a month ago visiting us. I love the relations we have. Frederick was out. Did you guys know that he came out and hung out with Michael Ann? It's just great. Anyway, and here in the town of Bayeux, it makes a great place to sleep and use as a base for the day, for the 2 days that we're there. One of the more remarkable medieval documents. Graham, this may be your kind of baby. The tapestry at Bayeux is a document describing...
Yeah, so
I bet you love this.
It's the invasion of England by William the Conqueror. We almost have no information about this time period as far as written things. And here we have 75 yards of just pure information. It's propaganda, but it's still very helpful. And the museum is just fabulous. One of my favorite moments on the tour.
I love it when he says propaganda. It is told from the perspective of a Frenchman when William the Conqueror defeats Harold at the Battle of Hastings. I took Tony with me one time, who's British, and guides with us now, and she was infuriated. I'm serious. How can you be mad at something that happened 1,000 years ago? Well, those Brits, they don't let go of things. And by the way, this invasion and this woolen tapestry that is, what is it, silk? Embroidered, really, is what it is.
Yeah, it's an embroidery. It's called
really,
tapestry. It's not
you
right.
think of tapestry and think of boring. This thing is like a comic strip, 75 yards long, about 3.5 feet tall, and it is something to see. It truly is. Dinner night together in Bayeux, then the next day devoted to the 54 miles of coastline on Normandy, just a few minutes from Bayeux, where 73 years ago things looked a little bit different if you were visiting. A powerful site that gets better every year are the D-Day beaches. We hire the best local guides. I find them in the book, and we book them right away, and they tell gripping stories. Dale Booth here explaining what happened. He just took Rick around last June when we were there, and Rick was mesmerized, and it was fun to see. Yeah, fun to see Rick. I've been trying to get him to the D-Day beaches for a long time. He knows them, but it had been a while. And the stories that our guides can tell are remarkable. From the strategy that was required, from paratroopers landing, boats, bombings, infantrymen, is astonishing for you to get to visit. You see the real B-26 bombers, the real stuff, the Higgins boats that landed all those men. My uncle landed on day 3 in Utah, in Omaha Beach. I used to hear stories about this. Now I can go see what he was talking about. These are real, not reinvented material from the war. All along the coastline, you'll see what's left of 155 millimeter guns like this, of which there were 6 of on the top of that hill right there, called the Pointe du Hoc. Probably the most gripping part of your visit to the D-Day beaches, right there at the top, that the American Rangers had to take out. How do you take it out when you're coming in from the water and it's a vertical cliff like this? The story is gripping, to say the least. Bomb the heck out of it. That's what it looks like today from the top. Imagine 73 years ago. It's nothing but craters, and you have to be careful walking around at the Pointe du Hoc. Below you, down below, I'll go back, those guys are scaling with grappling hooks and ladders from London fire departments to get to the top to take out those 6 guns. Because guns could shoot 13 miles. 13. And we had to get rid of those. The Allies did. And remember, the Allies were the Americans, the Brits, the Canadians, and the French involved in the D-Day beaches. The Canadians had a big role. I'm not just saying this because you're Canadian. I love that part in Juno Beach, if you ever get more time to visit. we can't get there because it's a bit too far away. So we end our day at the American Cemetery, where 9,400 graves of American men who died liberating people they could never know. It's really a powerful sight, and you owe it, you'll want to see it anyway, to them to visit. And one thing that makes it more powerful is they built about 5-6 years ago, a visitor center that tells stories of the soldiers who are buried in the cemetery. And it brings it to life, pardon me. You can walk down to the beach too. Here's your one chance. We'll have enough free time to walk down to the beach at the American Cemetery, D-Day beaches. All right. Then back to Paris, we will visit go along the Seine River, stopping at the Camp David of Impressionism to visit Claude Monet's gardens at Giverny, where for the last 40 years of his life, he cultivated his art and his flowers. And I mentioned before, in seeing where it was inspired from, the water lilies. As we work our way back into Paris and finish with one last night in Paris in front of that Eiffel Tower. All of this information is available to you online about our tours. I want to remind you, and updated guidebook information we put on our website all the time, that there is $100 off on any tour that you take with us, on top of your tour alum discount, if that's what you have. And whether you go on the Paris tour with us, whether it's Patrick or Graham, or any of the other guides we have in France, or the Heart of France tour to see Mont Saint-Michel. Trusting Patrick not to get you too lost. We know you'll have a brilliant trip to France because of those waiters, not in spite of them. And I have a couple of announcements to make at the end. You guys were a great audience. You have a yellow flyer. I would think I was supposed to do this at the beginning of my talk, that covers what I'm telling you. You have a tour catalog that covers all of our itineraries. There are a variety of classes going on today in 3 different venues. This venue in particular, there's always room, it seems, unless Rick is talking, then it's pretty busy. The other 2 are tight, the theater and the room above. So if you really want to get into those, know that you should have registered and go early. If you want to book a tour in person today, we have people all over the place, in the lobby below, in our travel center, to help you understand what it means to go on a tour with us. Our tour guides are roaming all over the place. Enjoy meeting them. If you're not even going to France, which would depress me, but that's okay, you'll see guides from Scandinavia, Norway, etc. Right? Tonight at 7 o'clock, the most fun talk of the day, I know it's not mine, Rick does an irreverent history of Europe through the back door, or Rick Steves Europe talk. That is just a blast. I highly encourage anybody, even if you've seen it, I know he's updated it for this year. And I want to thank you very much, Graham and Patrick.
Merci à toi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Merci.
Nothing sells a tour better than understanding the person guiding it. Where else in the world can you meet your guides before you go on tour? And, oh, that's not the image I thought I had. Whoops. That's Rick and me on a TV show having dinner. Well, the last slide is supposed to be an image that tells you to go downstairs, because Patrick, Graham, and I, and other French guides will be hanging out in the lobby, entranceway, to answer any questions you may have for the next hour. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Bon voyage.